Hi, I'm Nessa, and this is ESL Top 10. I'm super happy you're here watching this lesson. Today we're looking at the super verb, a heavy lifter, by popular demand, would. So in this lesson, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a couple of tips, and then I'm going to show you 8 different ways you can use would when you are speaking or using English. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with an example sentence so you can think about what is would doing in each sentence, and then I'll explain as we go through. So before we even begin with example number 1, what is would? Would is a modal verb. What's a modal verb? A modal verb is a helping verb. It's a kind of auxiliary verb, which means it's used with another verb, a main verb. So modal verbs are verbs like would, must, might, can, could. There are many modal verbs, and each modal verb has a few different jobs. These little guys wear many hats, but definitely one of my faves is would. So another tip for you is would and other modal verbs are always followed by a main verb in the base form. So you wouldn't say would went or would gone, you would say would go or would take. And if you want to put it in the past, it would be would have, never would had, would have gone, would have called. So that's a little tip for you, and that's true again for all modal verbs. So here we go. The first use of modal verb. Here is the example sentence. She said she would be back at noon. So what is would doing here? Well, would is telling us what someone else said in the past. The speaker, let's say I am at work and I tell my coworkers, I'll be back at noon, and then I leave. And someone says, what did Nessa say? That's when you would say, Nessa said she would be back at noon. So would is used to report will, to say what someone else said in the past when they use the verb will. Number 2, I wish you would do your dishes. I wish you would do your dishes. So wish. When we talk about wishes in English, we're saying we want something that's impossible. So we have to use a verb in the past tense. You could also say, oh, I wish I had $1 million, or I wish my dog would behave. So we're using a verb in the past. So if you want to talk about what you want someone to do, that's when you can say, I wish you would, or I wish he would, or I wish they would. So wishes. Number 3 is kind of also like wishes, because we're imagining something that we think is impossible. This is used in conditionals. If I had enough time, I would definitely go to Seattle with you tomorrow, but I just don't have enough time. So I'm imagining something that is impossible. If I had enough time, but I don't, I would go to Seattle with you tomorrow, but I will not. You could also say, if you're making a suggestion to someone or giving them advice, if I were you, I would call her. Talk it out. Make it work. Number 4, I'd like to see you soon. I'd like. I'd like is I would like. I've mentioned this in other lessons. It means I want. So in a restaurant, you could say, I'd like a glass of water, please. Or, excuse me, I'd like the bill. I'd like means want. Number 5, you're at a friend's house and they say, do you want a cup of coffee? You could say, you know what? I'd rather have a cup of tea. Or I'd rather just have some soda water, please. Would rather. It's kind of like would like, but instead of I want, which is would like, would rather means I prefer. So if you have different options, like red pen, blue pen, what pen do you want? You could say, I'd rather use the blue pen. I'd rather. Do you want pizza tonight or pasta? You know what? I'd rather have pizza, if that's okay. Lots of cheese, please. Number 6, would you like a cup of coffee? Would you? So polite offers. Would you like the bill? So maybe if you're working in customer service, Would you like some hot sauce with your eggs? Would you like? So again, it's like would like, but now we're making an offer. It's very polite. Would you like some pepper on your pizza, Miss Nessa Palmer? Yes, please. The next one, similar, is making a request. So, hey, would you pass me the salt? Hey, would you help me move this table? It's really heavy. Would you? Would you is could you or can you or please. So you're asking for something as opposed to offering something. And number 8, definitely my favorite use of would. Here is the example based on a true story, and then I'll explain how you can use it. So when I was a kid, every Christmas Eve, I would go to bed really early. And then on Christmas morning, I would wake up, usually very early as well, maybe 7 o'clock, and I would go into my mom's room and I'd say, wake up, Mom, wake up. And she would wake up and we would go downstairs and I would look at the Christmas tree and all the gifts underneath, but I would have to wait. My mom would make breakfast, felt like forever, and when it was ready, we would go into the living room and eat the breakfast around the Christmas tree, and I would just stare at the presents. So would, what is it doing there? We often use would to talk about past habits. It's kind of like used to, except the verb must be an action verb as opposed to a long state. I'll give you an example. So you can say, I used to. I used to love volleyball, but I don't anymore. Used to. I couldn't say I would love volleyball because love is not an action verb. It's a feeling verb. It's describing your state. So when you use would to replace used to, has to be a verb, an action that happened again and again in the past. So we often use would to express our nostalgia about the past. We're talking about the past in an emotional way on some level. So I could say, when I was younger, I would play video games for hours with my friends. Or I could say, when I was younger, my mom and I would go to the beach on the weekends and we would lie in the sun and build sand castles. So those are the 8 different ways you can use would. For this lesson, you can download the free PDF where you can practice using would. In it, you'll see a story, a true story, not about Christmas, using the verb would to talk about past habits. And I'm also going to give you a little practice exercise so you get your practice in. You can get your freebie by clicking the links below. I am Nessa. This is ESL Top 10. Thanks for watching.